Next, from Springfield, we head to the Senate floor to hear the debate over the Grand Bargain Budget Deal, which was composed of 16 different bills. This runs about 40 minutes.
To proceed, Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 7, an act concerning gaming, third reading of the bill.
Senator Link to explain.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a comprehensive gaming bill that creates 6 new riverboats in Chicago, Rockford, Danville, south suburbs of Cook, Lake County, and unincorporated Williamson County. This bill also establishes the Chicago Casino Development Authority and a 5-member Chicago Casino Development Board to oversee the development and promotion of the new Chicago Casino. However, the Illinois Gaming Board still maintains a regulatory authority over the Chicago Casino. This bill allows Chicago to have up 4,000 positions. Also, this will allow new and existing casinos may have up to 1,600 gaming positions. However, casinos may purchase up to 2,000 unused positions for other casinos. This bill also allows electronic gaming at racetracks. When the Chicago casinos begin operating, a privilege tax on casinos and electronic gaming will be decreased. Senate Bill 7 also adds a significant ethics provision for members of the Chicago Casino Development Board, the Illinois Racing Board, and the Illinois Gaming Board. The bill requires the establishment of diversity programs to increase the utilization of minority and female-owned businesses. Finally, Senate Bill 7 makes various changes to promote standardbred racing and improve the efficiency of the Illinois Gaming Board's application process. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion? Senator Severson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First to the bill and maybe a question. First, I want to thank Senator Link for his years of work on this. We have passed this bill a number of times out of here, and appreciate your work and your willingness to work with this side and in compromising and coming up with a bill that really addresses a lot of concerns for a lot of individuals, but also addresses the issues that we've been concerned about, which is we're surrounded by 5 states that have all declared war on Illinois, and they are building casinos on their borders. And if I'm not mistaken, last year about $1.6 billion left Illinois just to go to the 5 surrounding states. $1.6 billion just to our surrounding states. And if you go into Indiana and look at some of their casinos, you'll see the majority of the cars there have Illinois plates in those. This is a bill that helps keep our entertainment dollars here in Illinois. Second is for Chicago. To be a tourist and a convention center like Chicago is, not to have a casino makes no sense. It would be a significant help to the city of Chicago, to their financial concerns, but also it's going to help them attract more conventions. It's going to help keep those dollars again in Chicago, which makes this an important bill. And then third, this helps communities all around the state that are struggling, communities that are on border communities that are struggling, like Rockford and in Lake County and Danville, those communities that have neighboring states literally minutes away that are developing casinos that would devastate communities like ours in Rockford. The amount of construction that this brings, the amount of jobs that this creates is significant for Illinois. And again, these are dollars that are now currently leaving Illinois that we're talking about keeping here in this state. So I rise in support of this legislation. We have tried to address the concerns from horsemen to local communities, to existing casinos, to the new ones, and I think we've tried to address it in this legislation. So, again, Senator, thank you for your leadership on this, and I hope we can get this part of this grand bargain passed, so we can have at least this out of the way as we work on the rest of the program. So, thank you.
Senator McCarter, for what purposes do you seek recognition?
Bill, to the bill, please.
Bill, Senator McCarter.
Getting in shape physically is a difficult thing. But there's always a late night gadget that you can strap around your waist and shock yourself or whatever it is if you believe it's going to really work. But the truth is, you got to get up every day and you got to eat a little less and work hard, and that's how it happens. This is not the fix for Illinois. And, it's a little embarrassing that instead of doing the hard work of disciplining ourselves to lower our spending and reduce the size of this government that's unaffordable to the people, we look to solutions like this. We hear we need to grow our way out of this mess, but instead we're going to gamble our way out of this mess. This is wrong. We need to make those tough choices and be honest with people as to how much we can do for them, how much money we can spend. And I think that those things that are coming in the future, besides just gambling, but a tax increase, which again is attached to this bill as well, would go over a lot better if people saw that we were making an effort to live within our means first, just as they are required to in their families and at their home. Gambling, video poker, video gaming, medical marijuana, it's unfortunate that this is the only thing that we have to offer to get our house in order, rather than being disciplined in our spending. I urge a no vote.
Senator Link to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been thinking a lot about this bill. Senator Severson said I've introduced it, passed it numerous amount of times. People might have criticism of gaming in the state of Illinois. First of all, no one's forcing you to gamble. This is a recreational objective that people can go to if they so see fit to. And Illinois has taken an opportunity to expand to help 6 different local communities. I'll use Chicago as the first example, when they're going to use their profits from this to pay police and fire pensions. I have heard it from that side and this side, from people complaining, why do we have to give more general revenue funds to the city of Chicago to pay for their police and fire pension? Well, guess what? Pass this bill and you won't have to worry about that in the future. The other thing, I'd like you to go to Danville, Rockford, up in Lake County, south suburbs, and tell those people that we don't want to have jobs and opportunities for people to strive in the future. I mean, when you talk to a person that's looking for a job and you're telling them, well, we could create a job, but it's probably not going to help you because it's part of gaming. It'll help them, and you talk to the communities that have gaming in it and see how they have strived in the future. I won't belabor this point, but I do want to say one thing. There is one business I want to put out of business, and that's the busing companies that are taking people to Indiana and Wisconsin every day. And if you don't think that they are taking them, look at the size of those buses, and they're not running empty. They're taking people other states. They're taking our money from this state. And as Senator Severson said, I think we could use $1.6 billion in this state. I ask for an affirmative vote on this. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 7 pass? All those in favor will vote aye, opposed nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Take the record. There are 31 voting yea, 26 voting nay, none voting present. Senate Bill 7, having received the required constitutional majority, is declared passed. Senator Cullerton wishes to proceed on Senate Bill 16. Yeah, President Cullerton, I'm sorry. President Cullerton. Senator President Cullerton seeks leave of the body to return Senate Bill 16 to the order of second reading. Leave is granted. On the order of second reading, Senate Bill 16, Mr. Secretary, are there any floor amendments approved for consideration? Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Are there any further floor amendments approved for consideration?
Floor amendment number 2 offered by President Cullerton.
Senator Cullerton to explain.
Yes, amendment number 2 is the technical amendment that links this bill with the other bills in the package, so move for its adoption.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Are there any further floor amendments approved for consideration?
No further amendments reported.
Third reading. Now on the order of third reading, President Cullerton indicates that he wishes to proceed. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 16, an act concerning state government, third reading of the bill.
Senator Cullerton to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This bill was debated earlier, but there's been some changes. And I want to highlight those changes by addressing concerns that have been raised. I understand, first of all, there might be some concerns by some Republicans in the chamber concerning the governor's position on this bill. So, first of all, I would remind you that when we had our State of the State message, the governor personally expressed his congratulations to myself and to Leader Radogno for our efforts here. And our efforts to try, and I could quote him, by working together, trying to find solutions, trying to find compromise. And this is a perfect example in this bill of my effort to try to find compromise with the governor. And so, we have added language to the bill that I got from the governor. It's called a Tier 3 plan, so that in this pension bill, newly hired employees at SCRS, SURS, and TRS would have the option to be shifted to a hybrid plan that has a defined contribution component, and for those employees who do not participate in Social Security, a defined benefit component. And of course, you'd have the option to stay in your Tier 2. Also, the plan provides a local option which would allow other units of government to choose by ordinance to offer a similar type. I got this language from the governor. Earlier, in the earlier effort to put this bill together, the governor's office also gave me a number of other changes. The investment return smoothing. This bill phases in over a 5-year period any changes in actuarial or investment return assumptions made by the pension system. Another change, optional defined contribution plan. It creates a defined contribution plan in each system, allowing up to 5% of Tier 1 employees to join that plan in lieu of continued participation in the defined benefit plan. Anti-salary spiking. For SURS and TRS, if a member receives a pay increase of more than CPI during the 4-year period used to calculate their pension, then their employer will be responsible for increasing the pension cost. Another change that I got from the governor, salary in excess of the governors. For SURS and TRS employers, they will be responsible for making a pension contribution for employees whose salary exceeds that of the governor. So I have listened to the governor, and we have made these changes, but more importantly, the governor also, after many hours, quite frankly, of talking about pensions with his staff, he agreed that our consideration model is the one that has the best chance of being found constitutional, and it would save the money. And so, over a year ago, he and I came to that agreement. He was a little frustrated because he wanted me to introduce the bill right away. Where's your bill? Come on, let's go, let's get it. And I told him that it would probably be better if it was part of a package. And that's where we are today. Now, for some of my own colleagues, there's been some opposition that has come from some unions saying that they're opposed to this. So I just have to give you a little bit of background. With all due respect, I spent hours, hundreds of hours, could have been, with 10 or 12 meetings with the unions a number of years ago to bring about a pension reform bill. And it was based on the same consideration model. And they supported it. They said it was constitutional. We passed it with over, I think, 40 votes. It never got called in the House. And this version of that same constitutional provision called the consideration model is even less onerous, if you will, to those people who it affects. So what's really critical is for people to understand, and I believe this, that if you're working for the government and your employer says, we're going to give you a pay raise, but it's not going to be part of your final pension calculation, they have the right to do that. And that's critical to understanding what this bill does. So here's what we're saying to all the people who haven't been hired in the last 5 years. That's about 25% of our workforce. These are people who have a Tier 1, what we call a Tier 1 pension. Here's what we're telling them. We're going to give you three things. If you give up your 3% compounded COLA that you have right now, that you might get 30, 35 years from now, if you agree to give that up and take a Tier 2 COLA, the same one that everybody else has who's been hired the last 5 years, we're going to give you three things. We're going to give you 10% back of everything you've contributed so far. We're going to lower your future contributions by 10%, and we're going to guarantee you that all your pay raises for the rest of your career are going to be guaranteed as part of your final COLA. That's actually a pretty good deal. And then, when we save that $1 billion a year that this bill saves, we will have the option to appropriate that money right back into the school system. So there'll be an immediate benefit for those schools, and immediate benefit for that teacher who's going to get a pay raise. They're going to get a lump sum check and a guarantee that in the future their pay raises will be pensionable. That's what the bill is. And I think if the people who are in the system understand that as to what that bill does, they'll think that maybe this isn't such a bad idea. And so I appreciate working with the governor on this bill. I've heard some talk about people voting no on individual parts of this package. I don't understand that. If you don't like a bill that's in the package, vote no. If you like a bill that's in the package, vote yes. It's not that complicated. Sure, if one of them doesn't pass, they all fail. You would win then if that's what you wanted to do. But why would you vote no on a good bill like this that embodies the best in compromising? Even though there's opposition, this is something which is a tough vote, but it's an important vote. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Anderson, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
To the bill, Mr. President.
To the bill.
I would just like to commend everybody on this whole package, but I would like the record to show on this bill alone that this could be considered a conflict of interest for myself. So I will be voting present. Thank you.
Senator Ryder, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
To the bill, if I might, Mr. President. To the bill.
The bill, Senator Ryder.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. I want to follow up a little bit on some of the Senate President's comments with regards to this legislation. And I appreciate that there are those who see any one bill, voting for any one of these bills as a vote in favor of all of them. And then there are others who think that some are good and some are bad, and so you vote for the ones that you like or good policy, and you vote against the ones you think otherwise. I have never voted for a major pension reform bill in my time in the Senate. Never. Either because those bills, in my view, were either inequitable or they were unconstitutional. I am going to vote for this one. And now, having said that, I'm going to disagree with the Senate President with regards to the what's known as the offer and consideration portion of this bill. I think that the offer and consideration portion is clearly unconstitutional. Offer and consideration implies that you're going to give me something, you choose what you want to give me, and I'm going to give you something you don't have. That's not what this does. This says you're entitled to two things, you give me one of them. That's not consideration. There may be an offer in there, but there's no consideration. Now, having said that, there is, my understanding, a severability clause in the bill, so that we know that even if the offer and consideration provisions in the bill are deemed unconstitutional, the other provisions will still survive. And I hope that in his closing, I'm going to ask the Senate President to re-emphasize the importance of the severability clause so that any judge down the road reading these comments will see clearly it is the sponsor's intent that the rest of the bill become law, even if the offer and consideration portion is deemed unconstitutional. The reason I'm voting for the rest of the package is because it is beyond time. I appreciate that. It is beyond time to start moving in this direction. This legislation has provisions in it that move us toward a defined contribution model. And ladies and gentlemen, as often, government is running behind the rest of the civilized world when it comes to issues, and this is a good example of that. Most of private industry and much of government now is moving in the direction of telling its employees, you put something in, we'll put something in, and within certain parameters, you'll be allowed to management and you live with it. That provides for more predictability for the employees. It provides for more predictability for the taxpayers. And having that kind of model will do something that I think that sometimes we forget about in here. And that is, it will not allow the state of Illinois to do what it's done for so many years and say, you know what, we're not going to pay our share. We're just not going to do that because federal law won't allow us to do that. So I want to and support the legislation. I have deep reservations about the offer and consideration. The rest of this bill, though, is exactly the direction in which we need to head. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator President Cullerton to close.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the discussion about the constitutionality. I would tell you that that issue that was raised by Senator Ryder turns on the question as to whether or not future pay raises are guaranteed by the Constitution, even though you haven't been offered them yet, whether they're guaranteed to be part of your final pensionable salary. That's what it turns on. I believe that they do not. And therefore, you are getting something. You're getting a guarantee that all your pay raises in the future that employer cannot condition that pay raise. So there is consideration, and the courts don't question the sufficiency of the consideration, just whether there's any consideration. And so that's why I believe it's constitutional, and the senator's right, there's a severability clause in the Constitution. So we come back to it. This is a really important bill. We have to, you should, I didn't mention, it also abolishes the future members of the General Assembly from having a pension. Some people are upset that that's in there, but quite frankly, a lot of the new members who have been elected are turning down their pension. It doesn't apply to current members, but that's in the bill as well. So we have worked very hard on this bill. These are not easy things to pass. We've passed unconstitutional pension bills before. Believe me, I know what one looks like. We did it before. This one is constitutional, and I would ask you to please consider voting for it. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 16 pass? All those in favor will vote aye. Opposed, nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Take the record. There are 26 voting yea, 27 voting nay, 2 voting present. Senate Bill 16 has not received the constitutional majority and is declared failed. President Cullerton.
Postpone consideration, please.
The senator moves for postponed consideration. The secretary, put it on postponed consideration. President Cullerton wishes to proceed on Senate Bill 5. President Cullerton seeks leave of the body to return Senate Bill 5 to the order of second reading. Leave is granted. On the order of second reading is Senate Bill 5. Mr. Secretary, are there any floor amendments approved for consideration?
Floor amendment number 1, offered by President Cullerton.
President Cullerton to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. This is a bill that we have passed out of the Senate in a bipartisan fashion, actually, a number of times. I think people are pretty much familiar with it. It's called pension parity for the Chicago Public School teacher pensions. Beginning in fiscal year 2017, the state will assume the employer normal cost for the Chicago teachers. Currently, the state pays the normal cost and the unfunded liability of the downstate teachers' pension system. In fiscal year 2017, this would be $215 million. In fiscal year 2018, it would be $221 million. And thereafter, it would be certified by the board, just like we do with the TRS. So I think people know what it is. It would be the same continuing appropriation that we have for the TRS. I'd be happy to answer any questions and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Rooney, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
To the bill, Mr. President.
This is to the amendment. It's to the amendment, not the bill.
Sorry.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor would say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment has been adopted. Are there any further floor amendments approved for consideration?
No further amendments reported.
Third reading. Now the order of third reading, President Cullerton indicates that he wishes to proceed. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 5, an act concerning public employee benefits, third reading of the bill.
Senator Cullerton to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I certainly hope that we will be able to pass the pension bill that's on postponed consideration so that it would be tied to this pension parity bill as well. And again, I would renew my argument that this is something which is be equitable for the city of Chicago. It's already something that's being paid to the rest of the state. It would help the city avoid some of the proposed either layoffs or shortage of school days that they're contemplating in light of the fact that they don't have this money. So again, please ask for an aye vote. Be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion? Senator Rooney.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the bill, as long as I'm not messing it up now. I freely admit I'm feeling a little discombobulated over here because I'm voting no on a lot of things today that I would like to vote yes for. This little mechanism of having all these bills tied together has tied my hands. And so I've got a sea of red going up today because there are two bills. Quite frankly, the good work done by my leader and by President Cullerton has put together 11 votes that I would have loved to have taken in the green. But the revenue bill is one that I can't support, and this is the other one, which is why I feel the need to rise. I'm not a Chicago basher. I think we all do better with a healthy Chicago. I'm not a Chicago Public Schools basher. I think we all do better with Chicago healthy schools. But I'm one of the people where if the principle is strong enough, you let it get in the way of the practicality of, hey, you got to give a little something, we got to give a little something. And the principle here is just too important. Pensions, by their definition, are the longest term thing that we deal with. They are not the hokey pokey where you get to put your right hand in and then take it out and then put it back in. This problem that we're trying to solve with this measure got started about 20 years ago at the request of the Chicago public school system. They said, hey, we want to get out of this. We want to be treated differently. Well, I'm sorry. As much as I'd like to help, when you make a decision like that, when you take your right hand out, your right hand is out. And when you pick up one end of a stick, you pick up the other end with it, and you have to take the consequences. And so this one here, I just can't support with what I teach kids about. You don't get to say, we want to be treated differently, and then when you want to get the same money that everybody else has, call it parity. I actually object to the use of that word because nobody else got the flexibility that Chicago Public Schools got 20 years ago, but now we all have to pay in for parity to get things back. When you make a decision, sometimes the consequences are things you have to stick with. And so this is one of the two that I actually firmly would be a no on and keep me from being a yes on a lot of good stuff that I wish I could vote for.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Senator Cullerton to close on the hokey pokey.
Well, thank you. So I appreciate Senator Rooney's comments. I believe that given some time, I can, since you're relatively new here, I can go back and show that that's an inaccurate representation on this particular issue of the history of what happened. I do acknowledge that this issue is frequently tied to a concern about the school funding formula, which is another bill which we hope we will be able to resolve. So, but I think the history of pension, the normal cost being paid for by the state, is that the Chicago Teachers Union, which I believe was started in 1896, never got a state appropriation paying their normal cost, unlike the TRS, which whenever that was started, that automatically got the state to be the employer and to pay the normal cost. But that being said, I appreciate the fact that there is an issue with regard to this bill. It's controversial. It has been in some quarters, but I think in light of the fact that we're going to work on pension reform, we're going to work on pension reform as well as the school funding reform, that this will be an appropriate bill to vote for. So please vote aye.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 5 pass? All those in favor will vote aye. Opposed, nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Take the record. There are 35 voting yea, 22 voting nay, 1 voting present. Senate Bill 5, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. President Cullerton on Senate Bill 6. I'm sorry. Senator Staines has a floor. Senator Staines is going to be handling the Senate Bill 6 on behalf of President Cullerton. Senator Staines seeks leave of the body to return Senate Bill 6 to the order of second reading. Leave is granted. On the order of second reading, Senate Bill 6, Mr. Secretary, are there any floor amendments approved for consideration?
Floor amendment number 3 offered by President Cullerton.
Senator Staines to explain.
Senate floor amendment number 3 is addition it's a gut replacement, but it retains the underlying language of the bill, but it's also adding in payment for state employees, and we'll have a full discussion on third reading.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment has been adopted. Are there any further floor amendments approved for consideration?
Floor amendment number 4 offered by President Cullerton.
Senator Staines seeks leave of the body to return. Is there any discussion? All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Are there any further floor amendments approved for consideration?
No further amendments reported, Mr. President.
Third reading. Now the order of third reading is Senate Bill 6. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 6, an act concerning appropriations. Third reading of the bill.
Senator Staines to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the Senate. So as we know, as of the beginning of this year, January 1st, we no longer had a appropriation budget for much of the budget. A number of items are continuing to get paid by court order or because of continuing appropriations, things like Medicaid or pension payments, debt service, employee salaries happen under the court order, and we had passed a bill for K-12 funding, and we'd passed bills, the stopgap, for half of the year. This bill is now a supplemental to make sure that everyone's getting paid who is not getting covered right now for the second half of the year. So it will ensure that our social service agencies, higher education institutions, the MAP grants of students who are affected by MAP grants, and we have also included an amendment in case we don't know what's going to happen in the courts with employee salary. We've included an amendment now to make sure that employees will get paid regardless of the outcome of the court order. And it also provides state operational dollars as well so that our vendors can continue to get paid. And lastly, it also includes an appropriation for group health that we know many of us now, state employees are having a hard time getting their doctors to see them or to have to pay up front because they've not gotten paid for so long. So in what this bill is doing then in its entirety now is appropriating $7.7 billion all funds. $7.4 billion of that is general revenue funds. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the details of what all is getting appropriated in that if anyone has questions. Certainly urge an aye vote. I think it's critical that we enable full funding for all these organizations that right now are not. Including domestic violence shelters that we know had been left out of the stopgap. This is fully funding those domestic violence shelters as well. Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Senator Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the sponsor yield briefly, please?
Sponsor indicates she'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Staines, you mentioned the court order issue, consent decree issue, and the spending that is going on pursuant to those provisions. Does this supplemental affect that? In other words, will this make those go away?
Senator Staines.
No, I do not believe so. I mean, that's my understanding. That's correct.
Senator Ryder.
Thank you. Do you have an understanding, Senator Staines? Because I do not. If this doesn't do it, if an appropriation won't do it, do you have an understanding of what we need to do in order to kind of wrest control of that appropriations away from a court order, let's say, back into the hands of the General Assembly where it properly belongs?
Senator Staines.
So I'm not sure I know entirely what would make a court order go away, so I'm not sure I really am in a position to be able to answer that. What I can say is that this appropriation bill, outside of just the state employee payment, anything that is getting covered right now under court orders is not appropriated in this bill, nor was it appropriated in the stopgap. So I don't think we're impacting those things.
Senator Ryder.
That might be our answer because we're not appropriating into those areas. Senator Staines, can you tell me, based on the current revenue estimate for FY17, And if you add this supplemental to the GRF spending, what will be our projected deficit for FY17?
Senator Staines.
So the estimate I have right now, but it may be getting tweaked because I think the revenue bill may still be having some adjustments. But assuming that that's passed, the last estimate I've seen on that would have us getting in about $2 billion more for this current fiscal year from the revenue bill. And based on our estimates of what would get spent right now, we'd end up having a deficit of about little under $4.4 billion. It does enable us to now, going forward, starting fiscal year 18, actually have a balanced budget and into the future as well.
Seeing no further discussion, Senator Staines, do you wish to close?
Yes, I highly encourage yes votes on this. I think it's critical. We have been devastating so many organizations around the state, our higher education institutions, as we know right now. We have some that are really at risk of accreditation issues. Many of them are at risk of having to do serious layoffs, including student employees. Many MAP grant students don't know whether or not they're going to be able to stay in school. We have many social service agencies that have been closing their doors. We need to provide stability to them. I very much encourage an aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 6 pass? All those in favor will vote aye. Opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Take the record. There are 42 voting yea, 16 voting nay, 1 voting present. Senate Bill 6, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.